My name is Katrina, 33 years old. On the morning of my sister's wedding, I stepped out of the shower and my father was already waiting in the hallway. He looked at my bright, chemical orange hair and smiled. Now you won't outshine our real daughter. My mother stood behind him and let out a short, rehearsed laugh. Exactly. Today is Chloe's day. You're just the shadow. They had poured salon-grade dye into my shampoo bottle the night before. I didn't cry. I didn't scream. I didn't say a word. I simply looked them both in the eyes, walked out to my car, closed the door, and made one phone call. They had no idea who I was calling. They had no idea she had been waiting for this moment for 29 years. Less than 1 hour later, when that woman walked in, my mother went deathly pale and had to grab the wall to keep from falling. My name is Katrina, 33 years old. And today, every lie my mother has told for the last 29 years is about to collapse in front of everyone. If you've ever been treated as the wrong daughter by your own family, comment orange below and subscribe so you don't miss what happens next. The reason I let it happen is because I already knew. The night before, at 11 o'clock, I had gone into the bathroom of my childhood bedroom to wash my face. On the counter sat a bottle of Aveda shampoo, mint green, the exact brand I use. It was not my bottle. Mine was still in my overnight bag on the bed. In the small trash can beside the vanity was another mint green bottle with the cap off, half full, tossed on top of a used cotton pad. Someone in that house had emptied my shampoo, replaced it with a decoy, and been sloppy about the evidence. I unscrewed the fake bottle. I smelled it. Under the mint, there was a soft chemical sweetness, hydrogen peroxide. I have been a NICU nurse for 11 years. When you spend that long around neonatal sterilization protocols, you learn what chemicals smell like the way other people learn what basil smells like. I put the bottle back on the counter exactly where I had found it. In the NICU, when you suspect a chart is being falsified, you don't rip up the paper. You let the record finish. Then you prove what happened. I slept badly. In the morning, at 11:15, I got up on purpose. I let my mother believe I was groggy. I stepped into the shower and used the bottle. All of it. I let the color set for a full 60 seconds while I counted, because I needed the evidence to be undeniable, and because I needed my mother to think, for one final hour, that she had won. When I stepped out into the hallway, my father was waiting like he had a stage cue. My mother stood 3 steps behind him with a champagne flute already in her hand. Neither of them was surprised. That was how I knew they had been sitting there for at least 20 minutes, waiting for the door to open. I said nothing. I walked past them. I went out the front door of the house I grew up in, and I got into my car. The Charlotte sun was hitting the driveway hard enough that I had to squint through the windshield. I closed the car door. Then I dialed. The phone rang once. "Loretta, it's Katrina. Are you still in Charlotte with Hollis?" "I am. I need you at the Duke Mansion, bridal suite, now." She did not ask what happened. She did not say, "I'm sorry." She did not ask if I was safe. She said, "I'm getting my keys. Send me the address. And Katrina." She paused. "I've been ready for this call for 29 years. I set the phone on the passenger seat. I dialed a second number. Salon Blanc in Dilworth. I told the woman who answered that I had a permanent color emergency and I needed a colorist in 7 minutes. She said her name was Marnie and she would be waiting at the door. I put the car in reverse. My mother was standing in the front window watching me go. She raised her champagne flute half an inch, like a toast. I did not wave back. Marnie was standing at the salon door in a black apron with a pair of latex gloves already on. She was maybe 28, with a short buzz cut and tired eyes. She looked at my hair for 2 seconds. Then she said, "Come inside. Don't touch anything on the way to the chair." She lifted a strand of my hair and held it under the color-corrected light. She sniffed it once. She peeled off a glove. "This is Redken Permanent. Someone put this here on purpose. This did not leak from anywhere." "I know," I said. "Do you want me to try to strip it?" "No, I want you to tone it enough that it isn't the first thing anyone sees. And I want a receipt with the exact time, the exact product analysis, and your signature." Marnie looked at me for a long moment. Then she nodded once and started mixing. 27 minutes later, I was walking out of Salon Blanc with a copper-orange head of hair that no longer looked like a road cone, a zip-top bag of hair samples, a printed invoice for $340, and Marnie's business card with her cell number written on the back in Sharpie. "If anyone tells you that receipt isn't enough," she said at the door, "you call me. I'll come." I got in the car. My phone lit up. A text from Loretta. "I'm at the venue. Waiting downstairs." The dashboard clock read 12:22. I had made 2 phone calls in the last 42 minutes. In 18 more, my mother's world was going to walk into a room she had spent 29 years making sure never opened. She still didn't know. To understand what was inside Loretta's shoulder bag, you have to go back to the winter of 1997. I was 4 years old. My mother went into labor at 28 weeks. My father took her to Wake Forest Baptist in Winston-Salem in the middle of an ice storm. A neighbor named Willa took me home. I stayed with Willa for almost 3 weeks. I have very few memories of that time. I remember her yellow kitchen curtains. I remember the smell of dryer sheets on my pajamas. And I remember one afternoon when my grandmother, Eleanor Ellsworth, drove 90 minutes from the hospital just to pick me up and take me to see my sister through a glass wall. My grandmother held me on her hip in a hallway that smelled like disinfectant. She pointed at a plastic box under a warming light. Inside the box was something the size of a loaf of bread, wrapped in wires. "That is your sister," she said. "She is very small, but she is fighting." That was the only time in the first 9 weeks of Chloe's life that I saw her. It was also the only time in my life that anyone told me my grandmother had been at that hospital at all. For the next 25 years, everything I heard about Chloe's birth came from my mother. My mother told the story the same way every time. I fought for that baby every day. I sat by her incubator. I stayed up all night. I didn't sleep for 2 months. She told it on Chloe's birthday, every February. She told it on Mother's Day, every May. She told it at family dinners when a new friend asked how the sisters were so different. She told it at church, at the grocery store, in the car, at the dentist. By the time Chloe could talk, she was repeating pieces of it back like scripture. Once, when I was 8, I asked my mother where the hospital pictures were. She said, "We were too busy fighting to take pictures." I remember that answer very specifically because I remember watching her face while she said it. She was applying mascara. She did not look at me. My grandmother died in the fall of 2000. I was 8. Chloe was 3. It was pancreatic cancer, quick and cruel. My mother did not cry at the funeral. She wore a black dress and rearranged food on the reception table. That night, after everyone left, I stood at the top of the stairs in my nightgown and heard my mother say one word to my father in the kitchen. Finally. The next spring, when Chloe was almost 4, my mother began telling a new story. "Your grandmother didn't want you, Chloe. She thought you were a mistake. She refused to hold you." I heard this story for the first time on a Saturday afternoon when Chloe was crying because she had lost a stuffed rabbit. My mother sat her on her lap and stroked her hair and said, "Sweetheart, some people didn't want you here, but Mommy did. Mommy fought for you every single day." I stood in the doorway of the living room, holding a glass of water, and I did not know how to say what I knew, because I was 8 and my grandmother was dead, and my mother had a voice that made even the truth doubt itself. For the next 15 years, I let the story stand. Then, in the summer of 2018, I was in the middle of a night shift at Levine Children's in Charlotte. A 29-week baby had crashed twice in 6 hours. His mother had gone home to sleep because she had 2 other children. His paternal grandmother had shown up at 3 in the morning and asked, in a voice so quiet I almost didn't hear her, "Can I sit next to him? He knows my voice." She sat there for 9 hours. I drove home that morning at 7 and I sat in the parking lot of my apartment building and I cried for 20 minutes for a woman I had not seen since I was 8 years old. That afternoon, I opened my laptop and I searched for the name of the head NICU nurse at Wake Forest Baptist in 1997. I found a name I already knew, Loretta Whitfield. I typed her name into the alumni database from my nursing program because she had also been a clinical instructor there when I trained, and I sent her a short email. "Loretta, my name is Katrina Ellsworth. I don't know if you remember me from your rotations in 2015. I have a question about a family you might have had in the NICU in February of 1997. Ellsworth, baby girl, 28 weeks. Take your time." She wrote back in 3 days. 2 sentences. "I remember your family very well. Call me when you're ready to hear it." For 7 years, I kept that email in a folder on my desktop. I opened it on my grandmother's death anniversary. I opened it on the morning of my 30th birthday. I opened it the night my mother texted me the wedding date. I never called. Not until this morning. The rehearsal dinner had been the night before at Foxcroft Country Club, and I should have known then. The Ashfords are old Charlotte money. Warren Ashford runs Ashford Real Estate Group, which his father founded in 1962. His wife, Beatrice, sits on 3 charitable boards. Their oldest son, Everett, is 31, quiet, careful, and about to marry my sister. Everett's grandmother, Adelaide, is 79 years old and has been running that family since Warren was in high school. I was seated at the end of the table, on the Ashford side, next to Everett's cousin Cora, and across from Adelaide. Adelaide watched me for the entire first course. She was not rude about it. She was patient. She was the kind of Southern grandmother who could disassemble a stranger with 3 questions and a small smile. "And what do you do, dear?" I opened my mouth. Chloe cut in from 4 seats down. "Kat works in healthcare." Adelaide waited. Chloe did not add anything. Adelaide looked at me. She looked at Chloe. She lifted her wine glass a half-inch. Exactly the way my mother had raised her champagne at me from the front window the next morning. Then she set it down and said, "How lovely." She did not ask me another question for the rest of the dinner. Halfway through the entree, I went to the restroom. On my way back through the corridor, I passed the photographer. His name was Ramsey, mid-30s, black button-down, an iPad hanging from a strap around his neck. He was reading through what I recognized as a family portrait shot list. I saw my name highlighted in yellow. Beside it, someone had written bride requests minimal frames. Ramsey looked up. His face did not change. He said in a very low voice, "I'm sorry." I did not answer him. There was no answer to give. When I came back to the table, my mother was on her feet, tapping a fork against her water glass. She had prepared a toast. "Chloe had to fight to be here," she said, her voice full and warm. "From the day she was born. I fought with her every day." Adelaide Ashford was in the middle of raising her wine glass. She stopped. She lowered it 2 inches and looked at my father. "Where was your mother when Chloe was born, Douglas?" She had not raised her voice. Half the table did not hear her. My father looked down at his napkin. He did not answer. Adelaide turned back to the toast. I remember thinking, in that moment, that Adelaide Ashford had noticed something. I did not know what she had noticed. I did not know how much she knew, or what she suspected, or whether she had already decided something about my sister. I only knew that she was the second person at that table besides me who had looked at my mother's face during that toast and seen something that did not add up. We got back to my parents' house at 11 that night. I went upstairs to my old bedroom. I opened my overnight bag. My shampoo was in the outer pocket, exactly where I had left it. I carried it into the guest bathroom. There was already a mint green bottle on the counter. I sniffed. I felt the seal. I recognized what I was smelling. I went to the trash can and I found my own bottle at the bottom, the cap unscrewed, half its contents dumped down the sink. I stood in that bathroom for about 2 minutes deciding what to do. If I threw the fake bottle out, my mother would deny it in the morning. She would say it must have been an old bottle from the guest bathroom. She would look at my father and shake her head and tell my sister I was making things up again. But if I used it, I would wear the evidence on my head for everyone to see. I put the bottle back on the counter. I took a bar of soap out of the drawer below the sink. I washed my face and my body, and I did not touch my hair. On my way back down the hallway to bed, I passed my sister's bedroom. Her door was cracked open. The light was on. I heard her voice on the phone. "It's going to be so bad. Mom says by 2 she won't even be able to hide it." I stood in that hallway for maybe 3 seconds. Long enough to hear her laugh. Not long enough to be seen. I went to bed. The next morning, I stepped out of the shower and my father was already waiting. I pulled into the Duke Mansion parking lot at 12:37. The Duke Mansion is a 100-year-old estate in Myers Park, built of white brick and green shutters, ringed by boxwood and a 200-year-old oak tree. It was the kind of place that had hosted 3 governors and half a dozen debutante balls. It was also the kind of place that had a bridal suite on the 2nd floor with a private staircase. Loretta's Volvo was parked in the first row. Gray, mid-2000s. A Wake Forest Nurses alumni sticker on the back bumper. I sat in my car for 20 seconds. I looked at myself in the rearview mirror. My hair had gone from a road cone to a burnished copper. Marnie had done her job, but it was still, unmistakably, a color no one at that wedding was going to be able to unsee. I got out. I did not put on a hat. I did not tie a scarf around my head. I walked in the front door of the mansion with my hair uncovered. The venue coordinator was a young woman named Alicia, 25, clipboard in one hand and radio in the other. She saw my hair. Her eyes did not widen. She simply pointed silently at the grand staircase. Loretta was standing at the bottom of the stairs. She was wearing a navy dress and low black heels. Her hair was shorter than I remembered. A soft silver bob. Her leather shoulder bag was across her chest, held with both hands like she was afraid of setting it down. She did not open her arms. She did not say hello. She looked at me for 1 full second, up and down, taking in my hair. Then she said, "Where is she?" We climbed the stairs together. Slowly. Loretta's knees were 64 years old. On the 2nd floor landing, I could hear my sister laughing behind the closed door of the bridal suite. A bridesmaid was saying something about a song. My mother's voice cut through, telling a story about a Christmas dinner in 2003. Loretta looked at the door. She looked at me. I nodded once. She turned the handle. "Before it goes further, I want to ask you something. If there was ever a woman in your family who was quietly erased, a grandmother nobody talked about, a story you were told your whole life that never quite added up, tell me in the comments, because I do not think mine was the only one." Now, back to the 2nd floor of the Duke Mansion. The door swung open. My sister was in the middle of her Anne Barge dress, veil half-clipped, a stylist behind her with a comb between her teeth. 5 bridesmaids in sage green silk were arranged around the room in various stages of readiness. My mother was standing near the vanity, a fresh champagne flute in her hand, mid-sentence. Every voice in that room stopped. The stylist froze with the comb in her mouth. One of the bridesmaids, a woman named Lindsay, was in the middle of laughing and her mouth stayed open a half-second past the laugh. Cora Ashford, in the corner, closed the book she was pretending to read. Chloe turned her head. My mother turned last. She saw me first. Her mouth pulled into a small smile. It vanished the instant she saw the woman standing next to me. Her champagne flute began to shake. Not a normal tremor. A real, visible tremor. She took a single step back. The back of her calf hit an upholstered wingback chair. Her free hand shot out behind her and closed on the top of the chair's leather back. She did not sit. She used the chair to stay standing. Her face went the color of the wall behind her. That was the moment described in the hook. It happened exactly as I said it did. It is not something I have exaggerated for the retelling. Loretta did not look at her first. She looked at me. "Sweetheart," she said. "I brought it." She reached across and took my hand, and for 2 seconds I was 6 years old, holding on to the hand of a woman who had taught me how to sit still in a room where every alarm might be the last one. Then she let go. She turned to my mother. "Meredith, it's been a long time. February 6th, 1997. My mother's mouth opened. Nothing came out. "You do remember me?" Loretta said. Her voice was low, not unkind, not gentle either. "I was your daughter's nurse for 63 days. Chloe had gone very still. The stylist stepped back from her without being asked. "Mom?" Chloe said. Her voice was thin. "Who is this?" My mother did not answer. Pastor Ridley Vance, the officiant, knocked on the door frame at that moment. He had white hair, a black cravat with a thin gold pin, and the specific calm of a man who had spent 3 decades officiating weddings for wealthy Southern families. He took one look at the room. He took one look at my hair. He took one look at my mother clutching the chair. He said, "I'll move the ceremony to 3:30, family emergency." He did not wait for a response. He shut the door behind him. Loretta walked across the room to the vanity. She unzipped her leather bag. She set it down on the surface, next to a case of open eyeshadows and a half-drunk cup of coffee. She did not open the bag. My mother finally spoke. "Katrina, why did you invite this woman? This isn't the day for it." I stepped away from Loretta. I unzipped my own purse. I took out the mint green shampoo bottle from the guest bathroom, still full to the top with what looked like shampoo and was not. I set it on the vanity next to Loretta's bag. I said, "You did." Then I took out the salon receipt from Marnie and the zip-top bag of my own hair. I laid both flat. My mother looked at the bottle. She looked at the receipt. She looked at my hair. She said, "That could have come from anywhere. Anyone could have." "Meredith," Loretta said. "Stop." Chloe took a step toward the vanity. Her veil dragged sideways. She looked at the bottle. She looked at me. Her face did something I had not seen it do since we were children. It became honest by accident. "Mom," she said, "did you—" My mother's voice cracked. She said, too loud, too fast, "You weren't supposed to still be around. Everyone thought you retired to Florida years ago." My father, who had been standing outside the door, walked in. Loretta did not react to what my mother had just said. She said, very quietly, "I'm 64, Meredith. Nurses live long. We remember longer." My father crossed the room, and for the first time in my entire life, he took his hand off my mother's shoulder mid-sentence. He said, "Meredith, let her." That was the first time in 29 years that my father had used the word "let" to my mother. Loretta pulled a chair to the vanity. Her knees clicked. She sat. She opened the leather bag and took out a brown leather notebook. It was smaller than a hardcover book, worn soft at the corners. The leather scuffed pale on the spine from 30 years of being taken off and put back on a shelf. She placed it flat on the vanity. "This isn't a hospital record," she said. "It's mine. I kept one for every long-term case in my 36 years at Wake Forest Baptist. 12 of them are still in a drawer in Asheville. I brought this one because 3 years ago, Katrina asked me to remember your family, and I have. Chloe was still standing. Her legs were shaking under the silk of the dress. Cora Ashford quietly slid a chair up behind her. Chloe sank into it. Loretta opened to a page near the front. The paper was yellowed, edges soft. The handwriting was neat, upright, done in blue ballpoint that had faded to the color of old denim. Baby girl Ellsworth, she read. Admitted February 6, 1997. Weight, 1 pound 11 ounces. 28 weeks. Respiratory distress syndrome. Placed on ventilator support at 4:02 a.m. She turned 2 pages. Visitor log. Father, Douglas Ellsworth. Present 41 of 63 days. Mother, Meredith Ellsworth. She paused before she read the next line. Present 4 of 63 days. Chloe made a sound in her throat that was not a word. Paternal grandmother, Loretta continued. Eleanor Ellsworth. Present 61 of 63 days. 2 absences due to illness. Signed in each morning at 6 a.m. Signed out most evenings after 9. The room was so quiet I could hear the air conditioning cycle. My mother let go of the chair back for the first time. She reached for the notebook. Loretta closed her hand over the top of it. You don't touch this one, she said. She turned another page. Personal notes, March 12, 1997. Mother present 22 minutes. Told nursing staff, and I quote, I can only handle so much before I lose myself. My mother-in-law is here every day. Let her be the one to sit through it. Chloe's chair scraped back an inch as her leg tensed under her. April 10th, 1997. Loretta read. In the margin. Personal note to self. This family is going to need someone to tell them the truth one day. I hope I am still here. She looked up. I've been here. She turned to a page in the middle of the notebook. She read, without looking down. Day 31. Grandmother Eleanor Ellsworth held baby girl Ellsworth in kangaroo care, skin to skin, for 4 hours and 11 minutes. Baby's oxygen saturation improved from 89 to 96. Baby extubated to CPAP the following morning. First unassisted breathing since admission. Chloe was crying. Not the way she cried at Christmas movies. Not the way she cried when she got engaged. She was crying like something had been broken open in her chest, and she did not know how to close it. She looked at my mother. Mom, what did you tell me about Grandma? My mother did not answer. You told me she hated me. Chloe's voice was very quiet. You told me she called me a mistake. You told me she refused to hold me. My mother said, Chloe, that was a long time. Did she hold me for 4 hours? That's not the... Did she hold me for 4 hours? My father spoke. He was still standing by the door. Yes, she did. He was looking at the notebook. She held you every day I couldn't be there, which was most of them. My mother turned to him. Her face was white. Douglas, I need to go home, my father said. I need to get something. He walked out of the bridal suite. He did not close the door behind him. Loretta placed a hand on the notebook. She did not read anything else out loud. She looked at my sister. She said, I am very sorry, sweetheart. Nobody should hear this on their wedding day, but you should have heard it a long time ago. Chloe put both hands over her face. I stood there and did not move, because there was nothing I could do that would make this moment easier for anyone in the room, and I was not going to pretend otherwise. At 1:20, there was a knock on the open bridal suite door. Adelaide Ashford was standing in the corridor. Beside her was a woman in a pale blue dress and pearl earrings. Late 40s, blonde hair pinned back, a wedding program folded in her left hand. Adelaide said, Katrina, dear, may I bring someone in? She did not wait for permission. She stepped aside. The woman in the blue dress walked in and stopped in the middle of the room. She looked at me. Nurse Ellsworth? I felt my chest catch on something. Denise? Oh my God. Her hand went to her mouth. "Oh my God, Katrina. You look. I didn't recognize you without the mask and the cap." Chloe raised her head from her hands. My mother's grip on the chair back tightened again. Denise turned to Adelaide. "Wait, I'm sorry, is this—" She looked back at me, then at Chloe, then at my mother. "Katrina, is this your sister? Getting married?" I said, "Yes, but—" Denise's face did a thing that people's faces do when they are trying to make information fit into a picture that doesn't accommodate it. "Chloe said your sister works at a bank." Chloe's shoulders folded forward. Adelaide, in her very calm voice, said, "Denise, sweetheart, would you tell everyone in the room how you know Katrina?" Denise still did not fully understand what she was walking into. She turned toward the vanity, toward my mother and my sister and Loretta and me, and she said, "Katrina saved my daughter's life." Nobody spoke. "4 years ago," Denise said. Her voice was warming, the way people's voices do when they get to say a story they have wanted to say for a long time. My youngest, Elowen, she came at 26 weeks. 11 weeks in the NICU at Levine Children's. Katrina was our primary nurse. There was one night. Her voice caught. There was one night that Elowen was not going to make it. And Katrina stayed 6 hours past her shift. She did not go home. She held Elowen's hand through the incubator port and she talked to her. My husband and I were in the family room across the hall. Katrina came out at 2 a.m. and she said, "She's turning it around. She's going to be all right." Denise reached for her phone. She unlocked it. She pulled up an Instagram post from 3 years ago and she held it up. A photo of a small blonde girl blowing out one candle. The caption tagged at Nurse Katrina Ellsworth. 2,300 likes. "Elowen is 4 now," Denise said. She looked at Adelaide. "I don't know what's going on in this room, but I need you to know that Katrina is the reason my little girl is at home right now watching cartoons." Adelaide did not look at me. She looked at Chloe. "Chloe, dear, you told my grandson your sister was mentally ill. You told him she was unstable, that she had lost her job, that she couldn't be trusted in social settings." Chloe did not lift her head. "Chloe." Chloe made a small sound. "I need to hear you say it out loud, sweetheart." Chloe said, into her hands, "I said those things. Yes." My mother stepped forward. Her voice came out too high. "Adelaide, this is a wedding day, and we do not need to—" Adelaide raised one finger. My mother stopped. Adelaide said, "In this family, we know who was there, and we know who was not." She looked at my mother when she said it. Then she took Denise gently by the elbow and walked her out of the bridal suite. My mother did not sit down. She let go of the chair. She left the room without a word. Nobody followed her. Denise turned back to me from the doorway, still not fully understanding what she had walked into. She said quietly, "You look tired." I said, "I'm all right." She stepped forward and hugged me. I let her. I did not cry. That was the moment my mother realized she had lost the room. At 2 o'clock my father came back. He was carrying a shoebox. It was old. Floortime brand, gray dust on the lid. His hands were shaking. He walked past my mother, who was now sitting in a chair in the hallway outside the bridal suite. She had asked to speak with him 3 times in the 12 minutes since he had returned to the venue. He had not looked at her. He came into the bridal suite. Loretta was still at the vanity. Chloe was still in her chair, veil now unpinned, dress unlaced at the back for comfort. Cora had brought her water. My father set the shoebox on the vanity next to the notebook. He opened it. Inside were 23 photographs. Some were Polaroids. Some were older, black and white, taken with what must have been my grandmother's Kodak. All of them had the date stamped or written on the back in blue pen in Eleanor Ellsworth's precise handwriting. The first one showed my grandmother sitting beside an incubator with her forehead pressed against the plastic. The next showed her holding Chloe, 3 pounds wrapped in a hospital blanket, her tiny head resting under my grandmother's chin. The next showed my grandmother asleep in a hospital chair with a bottle in her hand. Chloe reached for the box. My father did not stop her. She lifted photograph after photograph. Her hands were shaking. On the last one, my grandmother was kissing Chloe's forehead through a tangle of tubes. Chloe's mouth was open in a tiny, silent yawn. Chloe made a sound like she had been holding her breath for 29 years. My father sat down beside her, beside my sister. Not beside my mother, beside my sister. He said, "Your mother told me you needed one mother, not two. She said if my mother kept coming, you would attach to her instead of her. So we told my mother to stop coming home with us on weekends. We told her to stop calling. She stopped. Then she got sick. Then she died." Chloe was not looking at him. She was looking at the photograph of Eleanor kissing her forehead. "She died thinking we didn't want her," my father said. He turned to me. His voice when he spoke to me was different than any voice I had heard him use my entire life. "You look just like her. You always did. Your mother didn't want me to tell you that. I never told you. I should have told you when you were 8. I let him say it. I did not answer. He said, "I don't know how to." I said, "When did she find out?" He did not understand at first. "When did Grandma find out you had told her to stop coming?" He looked at his hands. "She didn't. She thought we didn't want her." That's what I said. I stood up. I did not shout. I did not cry. I walked to the shoebox and I lifted one photograph out of it. The one where my grandmother was holding Chloe skin to skin, my grandmother's chin resting on Chloe's small head, her eyes closed, her mouth curved in the exact half smile I have seen in my own mirror 1,000 times. I slid the photograph into the inside pocket of my blazer. I said, "25 years is a lot to give back, Dad." He nodded. He did not argue. That was, I think, the first honest conversation my father and I had ever had. The ceremony started at 3:32. Pastor Vance kept it short. He is a professional. He has done this for people whose lives were falling apart in the row behind him more times than he could count. Chloe walked down the aisle with our father. She was not smiling. Her hair had been redone, but not entirely. Her mascara was thinner than it had been in the morning photographs. She looked, for the first time in the 29 years I had known her, like a person and not like a version of a person. Everett met her at the altar. His face was composed, but he did not take her hand as easily as he had at the rehearsal. I sat at table 8, in the very back of the reception hall, exactly where my sister's seating chart had placed me. The two of my father's old co-workers who had been seated with me had, at some point in the last hour, been quietly relocated by Alicia to a different table. In their place, without being asked, Loretta sat down, then Denise. Then, 10 minutes later, Cora Ashford. My table of 3 exiles became a table of 4 women who all knew exactly why they were sitting there. Adelaide Ashford came to the reception hall at 4:30. She did not go to the head table. She went to the library on the mansion's ground floor. 10 minutes later, Everett walked past me on his way to the same library. He was in there for 8 minutes. When he came out, he did not look at anyone. He walked past his own bride and sat at the head table and put his hands flat on the tablecloth and did not lift them. Beatrice Ashford, his mother, sat down beside me 20 minutes into the first course. She did not eat. She said in a very quiet voice, "I would like to know your work. Not tonight. When this is over." I said, "All right." She said, "I am sorry about the way we spoke to you last night." I said, "You didn't know." She said, "That doesn't make it not a failure." She got up and went back to the head table. The DJ, who had been given no signal to stop, called the first dance at 5:22. The music started. Chloe stood up in her dress. Everett did not move. There was a full 3 seconds of a Frank Sinatra recording playing to a bride standing alone with her hands at her sides. Everett said, loud enough to carry 2 tables in every direction, "I need a minute." He walked out of the reception hall. The DJ cut the music. Chloe sat back down. She did not cry. She did not smile. She just sat. My mother was standing beside the head table with an untouched champagne flute. Her hair was still perfect. Her lipstick was still perfect. But there was no one to say anything to. My father was in a corner with Loretta, and they were talking for the first time in 29 years. Chloe was staring at the tablecloth. Adelaide was speaking softly to Warren. Beatrice was writing something on the back of a place card. Half the room was pretending not to notice the empty chair beside the bride. The other half was noticing. My mother saw me across the reception hall. She started to walk toward my table. I stood up before she got there. I picked up my glass of water. I did not look at her. Before she could speak, I said, "I'm not staying for dinner." She said, "Katrina, we can still—" "No," I said. "You can't." I walked past her. "Before I go any further, I want to tell you what I did in the 3 weeks after this wedding, because that is where the story actually decides who I become. If any of this is landing with you, send it to someone you know who has been treated like the shadow in her own family. She needs to hear how it ends." I found Chloe in the ladies' powder room off the main hall. She was sitting on a small tufted velvet bench in front of a gilded mirror, her veil in her lap, her dress crumpled around her knees. She looked up when I came in. She did not stand. I did not sit next to her. I took the ring off my little finger. It was a small gold band with a garnet in the middle, the stone rubbed smooth by 70 years of my grandmother's hand. I had worn it every day since I finished nursing school. Nobody in my family had ever asked where it came from. I put it into Chloe's palm. She looked at it, then at me. "This was hers," I said. "She held you for 4 hours, on the day you started breathing on your own. That is more than I ever did. Keep it, or don't. That's your decision. It is not mine to teach you." She closed her fingers around it. She did not put it on. I said, "One more thing. You do not need to apologize to me. Not because I am fine, because I do not want your apology. It won't repair any of it. Just don't tell people I'm ill anymore. That's the only thing I'm asking you for." She nodded. Once. Very small. I turned around and I left the powder room. Ramsey, the photographer, was waiting in the corridor. He was holding a small black envelope. "I don't know if you'll want them," he said, "but I saved every raw file, including all the ones your sister told me to delete. If you ever need to know exactly what you looked like today, in copper hair, in a ballroom your family tried to hide you in, they will be on this drive." He handed me the envelope. I said, "Thank you." He shook his head. "Thank you for letting me do my job today. It has not been a good day, but it has been an honest one." He turned and went back to his cameras. At the main door, my father was standing on the front steps of the Duke mansion. He was holding his suit coat over his arm. He was not smoking, but he looked like someone who had once smoked and was thinking about starting again. I walked past him. He said, "Where will you go?" I said, "Home." He said, "Are you coming to Christmas?" I stopped. I did not turn around. I looked at the boxwood hedges instead of at him. I said, "No, Dad, I am not." He did not argue. He said, "I understand." I said, "You don't. But that doesn't matter right now." He said, "All right." I kept walking. Loretta was standing next to my car in the parking lot. She had her leather bag across her chest again. Her Volvo was already unlocked. She had waited to say goodbye. She hugged me, not for very long. She said, "Call me next week. Or don't. You know where I am." I said, "Thank you for being alive." She laughed once, and her laugh was tired. "You were always polite, even at 23. I got in my car. I closed the door. I started the engine. I drove down the long white driveway of the Duke mansion, past the boxwood hedges, past the 200-year-old oak, and out onto Hermitage Road. The mansion door closed behind me. Nobody ran after me. That was the first thing that felt right all day. I got back to my apartment in Dilworth at 6:45 that night. Biscuit was on the kitchen counter, which he is not allowed on, judging me for having been gone for 2 nights. I picked him up. I sat on my couch. I did not turn on any lights. I stayed there for a long time. At 7:12 my phone lit up. My mother. I did not pick up. At 7:14, my mother again. At 7:20, my mother. By 10 o'clock that night, she had called 11 times. The next morning, Sunday, she called 9 more. By Tuesday, the count was 22. By the end of the first week, she had called 34 times and sent 1 email. The email was 900 words. I read the first line. It was, "Katrina, I know today was hard for all of us." I closed the email. I moved her contact into a folder called Later. Then I renamed the folder Never. On the following Wednesday, Beatrice Ashford called. She said, "Chloe and Everett are pursuing an annulment. It will be quiet. They filed the marriage license on Friday but haven't formally recorded it. The Ashford family attorney is handling it. I wanted you to hear this from me before you saw it anywhere else." I said, "Thank you for telling me." She said, "I would like to have you to lunch, when you're ready. My mother-in-law would like to meet you properly." I said, "I'll think about it." She said, "Take your time. There is no rush." That is not a sentence people in my family had ever said to me. Chloe sent me a text on the 10th day. 2 sentences. "I don't know what to say. I know that doesn't fix anything." I did not reply. My father did not call. He did not text. He did not send an email. He did what I did not expect him to do, which was to think very hard about what I actually wanted from him. On the 15th day after the wedding, at 7 in the evening, he was sitting in the main lobby of Atrium Health Levine Children's Hospital when I walked out from my shift. He was not there to argue. He was not there to plead. He was there in a chair that faced the elevators, wearing a plain shirt, holding a folded piece of yellow legal paper. He stood up when he saw me. He did not step toward me. He handed me the paper. It was a hand-drawn map. Old Salem Cemetery in Winston-Salem. Section C, Plot 82. In the corner, in his engineer's handwriting, he had written, "I planted violets last spring. Purple. Your grandmother's favorite. In case you ever want to visit her." He did not ask me for anything. He said, "That's all. I'm going to go." He walked out through the sliding doors. I stood in the lobby for a long time holding the map. On the last Saturday in May, I drove to Winston-Salem. It took me 1 hour and 38 minutes. I did not stop for coffee. I did not turn on the radio. I drove in a kind of clean silence that I had not been able to give myself in a very long time. Old Salem Cemetery is on the north side of the historic district, a slope of green with old stone markers and a row of dogwoods that were finishing bloom that week. I parked outside the gate. I walked in. I found Section C. I walked past 12 markers before I found Plot 82. There was a small headstone, weathered granite. It said, Eleanor Ellsworth, 1932 to 2000. Beloved mother, beloved grandmother. Around the base, in a tidy semicircle, someone had planted 3 rows of purple violets. Recently, the soil was still dark around the roots. I knelt down in the grass. I took the photograph out of the inside pocket of my blazer. Eleanor holding Chloe skin to skin. Eleanor's eyes closed. Eleanor's mouth in that half-smile I have seen in my own mirror. I placed the photograph flat against the base of the headstone, tucked under a small stone so the wind would not carry it away. I sat there for a while. I did not cry. I did not need to. Under my breath, I said, "You were there. I know. I will not forget again." I said it 3 more times because I have spent 26 years listening to my mother tell a story about my grandmother that erased her, and I needed to say her name enough times to fill that erasure back in. Eleanor, Eleanor, Eleanor. I got up. I brushed the grass off my knees. I walked back to my car. On the drive home, I pulled off the interstate at a rest stop outside Salisbury, and I took out my phone. I sent one text message to my father. "Dad, Grandma is in Old Salem Cemetery, Section C, Plot 82. Come whenever you want. The violets look good. Don't call me again." I did not block his number. I did not need to. He had already given me the only thing he could give, which was a map, and the sense not to ask for anything back. I blocked my